Title: The Haunting of Old Mill Road. It was Halloween night, and a chill wind swept through the small town of Willow Creek. Old Mill Road, lined with ancient trees whose gnarled branches seemed to reach out like skeletal fingers, was known to be the spookiest street in the entire town. And for good reason. Legend had it that nearly a century ago, a tragic event unfolded on this very road. The old mill, which once stood proudly at the end of the street, was the site of a gruesome murder-suicide. The mill owner, Elijah Blackwood, in a fit of jealousy, had taken the lives of his wife and children before taking his own. Despite the passage of time, the residents of Willow Creek whispered tales of ghostly apparitions and eerie happenings along Old Mill Road. But on this particular Halloween night, a group of teenagers dared each other to explore the abandoned mill at the road's end. Among them was Sarah, a fearless girl with a penchant for adventure. Despite the warnings from the townsfolk, she led her friends down the dark and winding path, their footsteps echoing against the silence of the night. As they approached the mill, Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The once majestic building now stood decrepit and foreboding, its windows shattered and its walls covered in ivy. Ignoring the feeling of unease creeping over her, Sarah pushed open the creaking door and the group stepped inside. The air was thick with dust, and the floorboards groaned beneath their weight. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the silence. It was Emma, one of Sarah's friends. They found her trembling in a corner, her eyes wide with terror. There's someone here," Emma stammered, pointing a shaky finger towards the staircase leading to the upper floors. Heart pounding, Sarah led the group up the stairs, their footsteps echoing in the darkness. But as they reached the top, they were met with a sight that chilled them to the bone. Standing before them was the ghostly figure of Elijah Blackwood himself, his eyes hollow and his form translucent. Behind him, the spectral forms of his wife and children hovered, their faces twisted in eternal agony. Paralyzed with fear, the teenagers watched as the ghost began to advance towards them, their moans filling the air. With a burst of courage, Sarah shouted for her friends to run, and they fled from the mill, their hearts pounding in their chests. As they stumbled out onto Old Mill Road, they looked back to see the building consumed by an eerie blue light. The ghostly figures vanished into thin air, leaving behind only a haunting echo of their despair. From that night on, the teenagers of Willow Creek knew to steer clear of Old Mill Road, for the horrors that lurked within its shadows were all too real. And the legend of Elijah Blackwood and his tragic fate would continue to haunt the town for generations to come.
Title: Haunting at the Supermarket. As usual, it was only Emma and I were the only living beings in the convenience store in that dark and gloomy night. We had the night shift 5 days in a row. Emma was cleaning the front glass window, and I was organizing the racks since we had no customers. Emma was complaining about some uncleanable handprint that was on somewhere in that glass window every day that we had the night shift. We guessed that it should belong to some customer who had bad habits. As far as we can see, no single shop was opened. A few streetlights were spreading a dimmed light over the streets. At about 5 minutes past the midnight, a silent customer came in. Her went straight to the racks and started picking the groceries she need. She didn't talk and didn't show he face either. We were doing our jobs silently since it looked like she doesn't need any help. Slowly, we felt some cold air in the store. No window or a door was opened. I went to the counter since the lady was ready to check out. "Ma'am, your total is $666.66, I said. And with that, a cold shiver ran down through my spine. 666 is the devil's number. As I hurried my hand to my mobile, I saw a call is coming to it. It was from a forbidden phone number that you should never get a call from. My hands were trembling, legs were paralyzed. I saw the ghostly face of the silent customer. Emma was coming towards us since she felt like something is wrong near the counter. "Don't come, call 911, I screamed. The ghost turned back. Frightened, Emma fell down to the floor. Going backwards, she dialed 911, but there was no network. Suddenly, the lights turned off. A loud squeak was spread through the hall. It echoed for few more seconds. Tears of fright was drooping off from my face. My shirt was wet, but I laid still as I felt that it was safer than making a move. After a few minutes, the lights were turned on, but they were more dimmed, and in the floor, there was blood, which came out of Emma. She has turned into blue and wasn't breathing. I screamed and cried so hard. Since it was many years before, I still don't work at nights. Every time I am in the cashier and see the exact spot where Emma was, my blood curdles and heart breaks at the same time. My dear Emma, I shouldn't have tell you to call.